Hello YouTube. I'm out for another drive on a beautiful day, and the topic I want to talk about today is different ways to create income in retirement. Now, you know, there's the typical ways for some folks. You know, they'll take their money and they'll put it in a what is considered to be a high interest savings account, which a lot of those these days might pay. I think the highest one I've seen was about 2.25%. But the problem with that is currently inflation is about 5%. It's actually more like 7%, but what the government advertises, the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, is about 4.9, I think, in December when it was brought out, or January of 22. That's one way people will do it. The issue with that is you will pay taxes on that money because it's considered income by Revenue Canada. So by the time you pay taxes on the money, unless it's in your TFSA, but even then, 2.25%, when inflation is higher than that, you're actually losing money in your on your buying power with an investment like that. Another way that people will get income is they'll take their money and they will buy an annuity. And annuities are tricky because you need to really do your research, because they can have all kinds of different stipulations on how they operate, in the sense that if you're, you know, a married person or a common law person and there's two of you, you have to make sure that the annuity will survive or stay in place, is the word they use, until both persons have passed away. It's no good if one person has the annuity and then they die and the surviving person no longer has that income from that annuity. Now, some annuities, when the person dies or both people die, can have a payout. Like I said, there's all kinds of rules and flavors of annuities, so you have to be really careful when you get one, that you go through all the different stipulations and policies with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that your money doesn't get wasted, because, you know, we all work very hard our whole life to build up, you know, the cash for retirement, and, you know, we don't want to give it away prematurely. So you can have annuities that will pay a certain monthly allotment for a certain period of time. So say you have $500,000 and you want to get a certain amount of money every month for 10 years, and then at the end of that 10 years the money's all exhausted, and it's your annuity's at zero and you're done. There's other annuities that will pay out a portion of the money that you have in the annuity, and after say a 10-year period, you could have still 30% of the money left, or 50%, whatever the case may be. There's also annuities that when both people die, they'll have a cash value, and then that can go to your heirs. And now, mind you, most people, especially these days with the age that people are passing away, a lot older than they used to be, the biggest problem is going to be not what to do with the annuity money when they die. It's running out of money before they can actually, or getting an annuity, old tongue tire there, getting an annuity that lasts your retirement. until you pass away and your spouse passes away as well. So there's two things, or ways that you can get money or income in retirement. Of course, we all qualify for old age security, OAS, and pretty well all people qualify for the Canada pension plan. So you have that as income as well. Now, some people will have an index pension, and that's wonderful, and that should last them their whole life, and it will go up every year with the cost of living. That's why they call it indexed. And you can be rest assured, unless the pension is held by a large corporation that didn't plan properly. In Ontario, Canada, there was a company called Stelco that didn't fund their pension for their employees very well, and the company went bankrupt, and a bunch of pensioners ended up having to take a discounted pension in the end. I'm not 100% sure what ended up happening with that long term, but Stelco did recreate itself as another entity, and I'm not sure what happened to the pensioners. So the last way that you can generate income in retirement is from money that you've saved, and for a lot of folks, that's putting money in the stock market. And the rule of thumb, or the general thing that people do when they put money in the stock market, seniors, is they go to a financial planner, and that financial planner will either sell them mutual funds or exchange traded funds. Some of the more sophisticated ones will buy stocks and bonds for their clients. And for the longest time, there was a rule that, in retirement, you would have 60% of your retirement funds would be in stocks, and 40% or even 30% or 70-30, 60-40 would be in bonds. Now, because of the age, how do I say this again? Because people are living a lot longer now, the financial advisors and just people in general that are retired that manage their own money are not following that rule as much as they used to. So you might have 80% of your money in equities or stocks and only 20% of your money in bonds. Just to be able to stretch out your money, if a lot of seniors are living to 80, 90, and even older than that, if you had a 60-40, you might not have enough money to live to keep paying you income until you hit the ripe old age of 90 or even 100. I mean, people are really living a lot longer these days. Unfortunately, a lot of people that I went to high school with, that have died at a young age. So, with that said, you want to make sure that you enjoy yourself and don't try to save every nickel until you're 80, for sure. Now, one thing that you can do, and it takes a learning curve, if you do manage your own portfolio, one thing that you can do is you can learn all about options. And options are a derivative in the stock market where you can take the stock that you own. So, and as an example, if you own 100 shares of a particular stock, so say you own 100 shares of Apple, you can actually do what they call sell a covered call against your Apple shares. So you have 100 shares. That allows you to sell a covered call. And what a covered call is basically you get somebody. It's a person on the another person that's trading on the stock market. Like, there's no handshake, or you're not sitting down having a coffee with somebody else and say, hey, I'll sell you a covered call on my Apple stock. It's nothing like that. So you would set up your trading account. So say you dealt with RBC or Questrade or whatever provider that you use for your investments. And a lot of times it's as simple as, like, on Questrade, you can go on Questrade and you can just go on their website and you check a few boxes and say, yeah, I want to be able to sell and trade options. And it takes a couple of days or whatever, and you get approved for it, and away you go. And so explaining your covered call is this. You sell one covered call. You have to own 100 shares. You sell one covered call, and somebody will pay you what they call a premium for that call. So say right now your Apple stock is selling for $100 a share. And you think that over the next, let's say, 2 months. Now, you can sell covered calls for all kinds of different durations. It could be 2 months, a month, a week, a year, sometimes 2 years. But you think that your Apple stock isn't gonna go up any more than, say, $140 a share. And it's right now, it's January, and you figure that by February 15th, there's no possible way that those shares will go up from $100 to $140. Okay? So $140 would be what they call the strike price of that covered call. And the reason they call it a covered call, or a call in general, is it means that you sell somebody the ability to call your stock. So say between now and the expiry of that call, which we said was February 15th. So say that stock went up 125, or it went up to $125. You've collected what they call a premium by selling that covered call of, say, $250. Okay. So as long as your Apple shares don't go up to $140 between now and the expiry date of that option contract, so we said February 15th, so as long as it's below $140 between now and February 15th, you actually get to keep that $250 premium. It's yours to do whatever you like. And the great thing is when you sell that covered call, say on January 15th, that $250 minus a commission, which is usually about $11 at Questrade, that $250 goes directly into your trading account, and you can take it and you can buy more shares of Apple, or you can buy shares of another company stock. You can do whatever you want with it. You can just leave it in your account sitting as cash, but that's your money. So what this strategy does, and like I said, it's a learning curve, so you need to learn a little bit about options trading, and it's actually not that difficult to figure it out. And I mean, if you're retired like me, we have time, to to sit down and put the time in to investigate how these things work. And just think, if you own 500 shares of Apple stock, and you could sell a contract on each 100 share count, so that would be 5 times $250 in a month. So $1,250 US in your pocket for selling that covered call. And I mean, it's not just Apple stock that you can do that on. You can do that on many stocks that are traded on the stock exchanges, whether they be Canadian or US stock exchanges. And after that expiration date, if the shares don't go up to $140 a share, you can do it again. You can create, or you can sell another covered call on those same shares for another period of time. Now you're sitting there and you're going, okay, well, what happens if the stock does go to $140 a share? Okay, so you paid $100 a share for that stock. So 100 shares of that stock times $100 would be $10,000. Okay. So lo and behold, Apple stock goes ballistic, and on February 10th, it hits, $140 or above. So now, the person who paid you the premium for that covered call has the right, but doesn't have to, but they have the right to buy your Apple shares for $140 a share. So you've now, if that happened, you now have made $40 a share, or you've got 100 shares, it went up $40, so that's 40 times 100, so that's $4,000. So if they do decide to call your shares, like buy your shares, so you've made $4,000 profit on your Apple stock, plus the $250 that you were paid to sell the covered call. And I know this sounds a little bit, it sounds a little bit confusing, but when you really sit down and actually just write this down on a piece of paper, but you can also go and just go to Google or go to YouTube or whatever the case may be, and just Google selling covered calls. There's just a Investopedia. I mean, there's just a massive amount of information about it. And the reason I do this in my portfolios and my wife's portfolios is that I don't have $1 million in my stock portfolio. And if somebody has $1 million in their portfolio, then they're going to be happy with getting a dividend each month from, say, a Royal Bank stock or a Procter & Gamble stock or ETFs, or that pay dividends, whatever the case may be. Now the good thing is that, say you own Apple stock, well, Apple does pay a dividend. It's not a very big one, but you also are going to get paid that dividend the whole time while you've sold covered calls against your Apple stock. Now, I think Apple pays a 22-cent dividend every 3 months, so it's $22. Excuse me. So it's not a lot of money, but you are getting that as well. So if you think about this, say you've only got a $300,000 portfolio. Well, you could realistically make yourself $10,000 or maybe $15,000 a year extra income on your portfolio by selling covered calls. And like I said, you just have to be careful that if you don't want your stocks to get called away, to get sold, you need to make sure that you make the strike price. Okay, the strike price is the dollar amount stated in the option contract that the person would be able to buy or call your shares from you. Okay, so you just need to make sure that if you just don't want to, have your stocks get taken or sold or whatever the case may be, you just need to make sure that the strike price is high enough that it's, your shares aren't going to get called away and they're not going to get sold. But that said, if the shares go up $40 a share and they do get called away, you've made $4,000 profit on your stock plus whatever premium you've sold. So realistically, you could just buy back your shares and start it all over again. So that's the learning curve. You need to learn, to read the news and check out, some of the charts and different things, and learn a little bit about how the markets work and when stocks can generally go up or down depending on different events. Typically, one event that you'd have to look for would be earnings. Typically, stocks go up prior to earnings because the anticipation is that the company is going to have really good earnings, and that is going to put a spike in the price. And that happened actually yesterday. Apple's earnings came out, and I believe the stock is up about $12 a share since yesterday to today. Now, you know what? 2 days from now, some people, the day traders and the institutions could sell a bit of their Apple stock, and the price could drop a little bit. There's no certainty in anything. So here's what I'm trying to say is that if you're a senior that doesn't have millions of dollars in their portfolio, and they're looking for a way to make some extra money off their portfolio, selling covered calls can be a great thing. You just need to do your research and get an understanding of how it works. And I'm explaining it's not rocket science. It really isn't. And then, go at it slow, and over time, you can get it to the point where you can get some pretty good steady income coming from your portfolio over and above your dividends. And the last thing I'm going to say is it doesn't matter, who you are or how much money you have in your portfolio. You want to have quality companies. It's pretty hard to go wrong owning stock in a Apple, a Microsoft, Amazon, Adobe, Disney to a sense. Now Disney kind of got sucker punched a little bit with the pandemic and the parks being closed and so on, but there's a lot of good stocks that generally don't go up and down that much most of the time, but when they do go down, that's an opportunity to buy more, and then even make more money down the road. So, don't try to sell options on a crappy company, because you could very well end up, the stock could go down a lot, and when you have a covered call sold on it, you can't sell the stock. That's one of the caveats of owning or selling covered calls. But to be honest with you, you want to be in the markets long term. So you want to be, owning the Apples and the Microsofts, and these big companies that have what they call huge moats, piles of cash flow and earnings. These companies are buying back their stock pretty well constantly, which is great for the investor, because it makes your stock more valuable, because it means there's less stocks in the market. And what I mean by moat, Apple is a prime example. There's 1.4 billion iPhones out there, I believe, and people are picking those up and putting them in their hand every day, and all the apps that are on them and everything else. So and the other thing is with some of these stocks is prescriptions. Companies that sell prescriptions, or subscriptions, I should say, subscriptions. So Apple sells subscriptions to their streaming service. Microsoft sells subscriptions, to big corporations for space, in what they call the cloud, space for companies to store their data. Microsoft sells subscriptions for Office 365, companies' email. They sell server space, and on and on. Adobe sells subscriptions to all the software that they use. These companies, they're just cash cows, and those are the ones that you want to own, and those are the ones that are the best to hold to sell covered calls against. Anyhow, none of what I said today is financial advice. I'm just expressing, some of the things that I do to generate income in my retirement. So, you make sure that if you have a financial advisor, talk with them, get a professional's advice before you do anything. But I just wanted to put this out there, because, the sitting your money there in a Royal Bank stock and making a dividend, if you don't have a very big portfolio, is not gonna cut you a lot of income in retirement. And even though realistically in Canada, the government benefits that we get aren't so bad. I mean, when you add up CPP and old age security, and if you do your planning properly, so you don't have a whole whack of taxable income, like you have a large TFSA, you can actually get a fair bit of money from the government. But getting some extra income selling covered calls on your portfolio, especially if you're doing it in your TFSA, which is totally legal, you can do a lot better in your retirement. So anyhow, thank you for watching. Check out some of my other videos, because I talk about stocks and TFSAs and other things that are beneficial for retirees as well. And as always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and stay safe. Thanks very much. Talk soon. Bye now.